hope you're doing well. Welcome back to my video. I didn't know if actually I was going to make this one, but I thought why not, and it's part of my 25x type of books of 2025, going through the 100 books I've read, split into 4 different videos. I've already done my worst ones, I've done my most honourable mentionable ones, and now I'm doing my most fine books. I was thinking of calling it the most forgettable, the most mediocre, but I just called it fine.
And yeah, these are, well, it's supposed to be the lower, like the middle 50%, but the lower half of that. And I'm basically going from, like, how can I think of this? Like 74 up to number 50, but I'm just doing it from the number that they are in this particular list. And then the final video, which will be coming soon, probably a day or two, will be the best ones, which is actually going to be the best 28, because I had mistakenly not put 3 books in that list before. I had already done my honourable mention one, so it should have all been pushed down a bit. And in this video I'm only doing 22, but then the 22 plus the 28 plus the other 2 25s make up the whole 100. So I've got them all listed, just not fully in the correct videos that they're supposed to be. But anyways,
so this one is probably going to be quite shorter than the other one, A, because there's less books, and B, some of them are quite forgettable. I don't really have that much to say. So without further ado, number 22, which is my final 3-star, which could have been in the worst ones, but it wasn't, is Listening for the Lie by Amy Tintera. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. Like, I think it was interesting and intriguing, the mystery aspect. But I wasn't really here for the romance part. I didn't really care about that. And yeah, it was, yeah, the audiobooks here, I'm like, you can recommend if you want. They're sort of like a maybe if I was to be like yes, no, maybe recommendation. So yep. Then 21 is The Little House by Philippa Gregory. The description was sort of like a thriller, sort of like a mystery sort of thing like that, but it's more just like a domestic drama kind of, and then right at the end is the thrillery aspect of it. So I was a bit misled, a little bit boring, a little bit monotonous, but it did have decent things to say about sort of like the role of women and the place of women and the expectations on women in like marriages and when they have a child, and sort of like the familial pressure from the main character's husband's family. And number 20 is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. The more I think about this book, the more I'm like, it was a bit annoying. It's very, 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 very long. Far too long. Doesn't need to be that long at all. Like, honestly, like a good 100 to 150 pages could have been taken out of the book. Missed opportunity with the witchiness. Like, it was a tiny bit there, but it wasn't really that much. Repetitive, a bit monotonous. Had good intentions and good sort of like decent story and sort of things to say about like young women that fall pregnant, and how all the onus and the blame is just on them, even though, you know, it takes 2 people to make a baby, and like the injustice and wrongness of people and societal attitudes to young women that fall pregnant and they just blame the woman. That was all good and decent, and right at the end of the book, I think it does end very well, and it was the first book that made me cry this year. Like the final part was like done so well. So it's not a terrible book by any means, it's just not well plotted, or not really that taking good advantage of the sort of aspects of it that could have made it a great book. So yeah, I was quite disappointed, to be honest. Then number 19 is The Employees, a workplace novel of the 22nd century by Olga Rav, translated from Danish by Martin Aitken. I was actually really enjoying the start of this. These sort of like statements with these sort of like humanoid robots and sort of like humans and stuff on this spaceship in like the future, as they're sort of circling sort of like a planet or something, and there's like these weird objects, and yeah, it does talk about sort of like humanity and sort of like workplace and sort of our relationship to our jobs and sort of like work-life balance and things, and some interesting parts. But then as the book went along, it just sort of got a bit too sci-fi, and I was very confused, and I was like, I don't really know what's really happening here. Like, who are you talking to? Like, are they someone you've already spoken to? And yeah, I think if it was made a bit more clearer, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And I think it just goes to show that it's sort of like full-on sci-fi books I just don't really like. I get too confused with them. So yeah, that was my Danish entry for the Bookish Yours, by the way. Then number 18 is Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. Really intriguing plot and sort of start and how the book went along, about a sort of like TV show that the main character was apparently from, but she sort of forgot about, and these like three guys come to like the ranch place that she's been staying for the past like 20 or so years. She's like, I kind of feel like I know you, but I don't know like how I know you or who you are. And then they basically tell her that your mum isn't actually dead, which is what the father said. And that like we used to be on this TV show together when we were children. It's like a reunion and stuff. So she sort of like goes with them and sort of like reconnecting and things, and sort of thinking back to sort of a reason why the show was cancelled in the first place. All these like interesting parts, but then it sort of like lost me as the book went along, and I was a little bit confused and I didn't really like the ending, but it did have some decent things to say. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna check out the author again. I do have like the book Hide by her, which I've put on my horror bingo, sort of as like different prompt for a certain one of those. But yeah, it was fine, you know. That's what I keep saying for all these books, basically. Then number 17 is Once There Was a Bear by Jane Riordan, in like influenced by the Winnie the Pooh books. This is a short story collection about sort of like before the main books of Winnie the Pooh, I think, and sort of like meeting the characters and sort of Christopher Robin sort of getting them and sort of naming them and things like that. Yeah, it was cute. It was nice. It was enjoyable. My main sort of qualm is that the character of Eeyore is quite sort of like a buzzkill and isn't really like of a nice character. Like, I relate to Eeyore. I love Eeyore. Eeyore is like, I love him. He's sort of like depressy and cute and sad and stuff. Like, hun, that's me. But in here, he was more just sort of like trying to bring everyone down, and I didn't really like that, to be honest. I didn't really like his character, but overall it was cute and it was fun, so yeah, why not. Number 16, I Don't Want to Be Crazy by Samantha Schutz. This is sort of like her sort of memoir about her like issues with anxiety disorders at like university, and sort of like her life and stuff, and then going on towards the working world and sort of having like panic attacks and trying to help other people as well with sort of mental health conditions. I thought it was okay. It didn't really add too much to the conversation I'd already read previously about like mental health conditions and anxiety and panic attacks, but the representation was decent. Yeah, I don't really have too much else to say, to be honest. Then number 15 is Monumenta by Lara Howarth. I think it was quite interesting about like the role of monuments and what are they there to represent and to, you know, remember, and who are they for as well. That's like quite interesting part of the story. But I just sort of wanted more, and I just didn't felt like I couldn't really care too much as it was going along. So I was like, I didn't really know where it's going and sort of like why and stuff, but yeah, it wasn't too bad, you know. Then number 14 is Thou Savage Woman by Blessing Adams. This was quite decent. I remember it did actually make me cry, and I was on the bus in Birmingham listening to it, like the end part when it sort of re-brought up one of the sort of previous stories. And yeah, I was crying on the bus, and it was like embarrassing. I was just trying to like hide myself because it was like near the like school time, and like loads of like school kids were coming on. I was like, oh god, just do not see me, please. Yeah, it's about these sort of like female killers in the early modern history period of sort of like 1400s, like 1600s sort of thing. When I thought of early modern period, I thought it was like the Victorian age, but no, it was previously, but that was just like my own thought, I guess. And yeah, some stories were interesting. It sort of lacked sort of like a focus or a point in some sense, or like a running thread. It was just sort of like these different women, and there's also like these two witch stories about these like witch women that were convicted and killed, you know, because they had apparently killed people, but like that's not real, and they didn't actually do it. So I guess in some ways it was good for like, you know, showing the injustice of it, but like they didn't actually kill anyone, so they didn't really have any point being in the book. But yeah, it was a bit up and down, you know. Oh, also, by the way, these are my 3.5s now, and the ones from Little House to Once There Was a Bear was 3.25, and the rest of the ones I'm talking about are all my 3.5, which are my highest rating this year, which is a bit irritating. Like 3.5 is like fine, but it's not like good, you know. Then number 13 is D, A Tale of Two Worlds by Michael Faber. Very forgettable. Very forgettable, to be honest. I felt like it was enjoyable when I read it and interesting, but I can't really remember anything from it, so sorry. Then the two more, which I have both from my Bookish Euros video. The Italian entry is number 12, The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginsberg, translated from Italian by Frances Fraiane. Really interesting start, and sort of how like it sort of keeps you in about this woman like killing her husband, and then it sort of like goes back and shows sort of like the start of their relationship and how like it led to her to doing this. But I felt like I just kind of wanted a bit more, and it was a little bit slow. Yeah, but it wasn't terrible, you know. And then number 11 is Ti Amo by Hannah Ostervik, translated from Norwegian by Martin Aitken. Decent. It's felt a bit like autofiction-y, about like the death of her husband while she's in Italy, but a little bit forgettable, and I can't really say too much else about it, to be honest, so yep. Then number 10 is The Surrogates by Robert Vendetti and Brett Weldy. This is a graphic novel book. I really quite enjoy it, about like these like humanoid things that are connected to the people, and they go out and do all the jobs and stuff for them, but like the actual people just like stay at home and just sort of like rest the whole time. And it sort of reminded me a bit of like the Memory Machine, or no, the Pleasure Machine, what's it called, something like that, which is like sort of like a thought experiment when I did A-level philosophy, where like, would you go into this machine that you can have like every experience and every pleasure possible, and like no harm will ever happen to you, like you can just like, you know, continuously like drink and drink and drink, or like smoke and all this stuff, like do all like bad things that kind of can give you pleasure, but you don't actually get any of the bad effects of anything, like it's all just pleasure the whole time? Or would you rather stay in the real world and have these pleasurable moments that are also mixed in with unpleasurable moments and sort of like negative things? And that's sort of like reminding me a little bit when I was reading this, and yeah, it was quite just like interesting, about trying to work out, because these humanoid things were being killed, and he's sort of like this like resistant group about sort of it and stuff. Yeah, I think this was like a bind up of the first 2 or 3 volumes, or maybe actually 4 volumes, I think, of this sort of like comic graphic novel thing. And yeah, it was like drawn quite well, it was interesting, but I just didn't particularly love it, so yeah, do that as you will. Then the rest of the books are all ones I own still, and I'm going to be keeping them. Number 10 is Kit by Megan Barker. This is sort of like poetry, but like in a chronological form, in a sense. It sort of like tells a story about a main character's relationship with like a university like age friend, and like from the description I thought it was going to be a bit more of the back and forth of them sort of like becoming friends and like being friends and stuff, and then also later on when the main, like the sort of the person the character is talking to, or like trying to discuss with the book, as she's trying to like reinvigorate him, to, you know, feel better and include him into her like family unit as when she's like older. But I wanted more of the backstory, and yeah, it was decent, about sort of like the character Kit's sort of like mental health problems and the issues he has faced, and her trying to be there for him and trying to get help and stuff, and the issues with like getting help for him, and sort of like the mental health crisis and like issues with you know, finding the support and the availability and like timings and stuff. But I just didn't fully love it, to be honest. But I would recommend it. I feel like it could have been better. So yep. Then number 9 is Black Paradox by Junji Ito. It's a manga book translated from Japanese by Jocelyn Allen. I thought it was maybe going to edge a little bit more into talking about the main character's sort of like desire to die by suicide and why they like led them to that, but near enough straight away it goes into the horror category, and it is a horror book at its heart. Like interesting, well drawn, quite scary, but a little few things a bit like, oh, that just like went onto that quite quickly. I'm like, where's the leap? But yeah, I'm definitely gonna check out the author again. And yeah, it was decent, you know. Then number 7 is The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir, translated from French by Patrick O'Brien. The Woman Destroyed is like a novella within this book, and then there's 2 other sort of like short stories, The Age of Discretion and The Monologue. All 3 were fine. All 3 around about a 3.5. Decent, sort of like talking about sort of like women's place when it was set and sort of some of the things they deal with. But I didn't fully love it, or some of the sort of like writing and like the way it was presented, or maybe an issue with the translation. But yeah, interesting, but didn't love. Number 6 is Rizzio by Denise Mina, as part of the Darkland Tales books. Interesting about like lead up to, during and after the assassination of David Rizzio, who was the advisor and friend to Mary Queen of Scots, and the reasoning for trying to kill him to sort of oust her because she wasn't fully given into her husband. So it's like seen as sort of like petty treason because a man is above a woman, but like she is literally the queen, so she is above everyone else. So to like make it make sense kind of attitude, which I was a bit like, oh, annoyed. One perspective wasn't really that necessary in the book, but overall I did enjoy it. I didn't love it, you know. Then also is Girl Meets Boy by Ali Smith on number 5. I did enjoy this book actually quite a lot. It's sort of like a queer, like a mythological sort of like retelling in a sense. Part of these canons, sort of like myth books, sort of like reimagining them, but in the modern sense. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I just felt like there's a few too many leaps, especially towards the end, and like things just don't really like click in people's brain that quickly. But it was nice. It just maybe discredited some of the actual struggles in terms of that aspect of, you know, accepting people. But I would recommend I would read more by Ali Smith. Number 4 is A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. This is one of my 25 books. Yeah, I think it was good. I would give it a reread, and I do want to read more by the author. I just sort of was hoping for a bit more of the exploration of the main character's queerness and his relationship to the man that died in the book before it started, where it was not more so, but it leaned heavier on the discussion of American life in the 60s, which I wasn't really anticipating or hoping for. But overall, decently written, interesting, would recommend it. Number 3 is She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. It's a short story collection. This one was recommended by my dog, kind of. And yeah, this is here because some stories I enjoyed quite a lot, some less so. It came around to around a 3.5 average rating. A bit humorous, sort of focus on this like desire of like want and hunger and sort of like desiring things, which were done well. Different sort of genres of stories as well. Yeah, would read the author again. Number 2 is The Union of Synchronized Swimmers by Krista Sandu. This is translated from Finnish by the author herself, Krista Sandu. This is the Finnish entry for my Bookish Euros videos. I enjoyed this quite a lot, to be honest. I did think it could have been a bit better if it was a bit longer and spent a bit more time with the characters within the book, but it's following these I think it's like 6 women in like the time before, when they were in this sort of like unnamed sort of like Soviet state, forming like a synchronized swimmers group and then sort of going to a competition, and then later with them around the world in different places as they're older, just sort of their lives at that time, which you do get a good sense of, like, you know, kind of who they are now and sort of the circumstances and stuff. But I kind of wanted a bit more, and it could have lent heavier into that if it had been longer. Personally, like, I'm talking about love short books. Like, I love a short book. I think if you can do all you want to do within a short amount of pages and sort of make it concise and impactful, that is kind of better than dragging a book out. But if you're sort of pining for more, sort of like wanting a bit more, then it could have been better with more pages. But yeah, very decent. And then number 1 on the list of these sort of fine books is the short story collection Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. Again, some were very good, some a bit less so. It averaged out to 3.5. I think this is a very good sort of like prelude to her masterpiece, in my opinion, in The Dream House, which was just exceptional. And yeah, some stories I did very much enjoy, but like I said, some less so. But I would definitely recommend it, but definitely 100% check out her memoir In the Dream House, because it is amazing. So yeah, that's my little stack of fine books. Hope it is a little bit quicker than normal. But anyway, stay tuned for my best ones coming soon. It'll be a bit longer than I had planned, but anyways, and have a nice morning, evening, night, wherever you are in the world. I should be seeing you very soon. Bye.